am going to make a bold declaration that this session for the next 20 to 25 minutes will be one of the most impactful sessions in the history of ALEC, because we are going to be talking about the future of this country and what direction we go in. And this is an issue of data centers, AI, that is right in front of all of us right now, especially you all that are state legislators. So let me start this off by asking you all a question. You will be our focus group this morning. And I want your honest answer of this. And the question is, when you think of data centers, AI, and I'll give you three options. One, you are excited. Option number two is you are fearful. And option number three is you're undecided. And please give us your honest answer. How many of you would say that you are excited about the AI data center future? Raise your hand. Wow, that's pretty amazing. So it looks like more than half, would you say?
That's pretty good.
How many of you would say that you're fearful of the, wow, we're done. Our work is done.
That's right. Why are we here now?
How many of you would say you're undecided about it? Okay, maybe a third of you.
About a third over here.
Our objective is to try to give you the facts, ma'am, about what is going on in this revolution. I'll simply start by saying I'm so excited and nervous because one of my heroes, Phil Gramm, is sitting right in front of me. But if you think about what's happened in the last 40 years or so, dating back to the Reagan Revolution, we have lived through the greatest period of prosperity and wealth creation in the history of civilization. Right. No country has ever seen anything like what has happened to America. It obviously happened in no small part because of the incredible policies that were put in place by Ronald Reagan and people like Phil Gramm, the tax cuts, the deregulation, the sound money policies. And so just to think about this, in the last 40 years, when I first came to Washington, Senator, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was 1,000. Today we have Dow 52,000 and rising, rising, rising. So it's been an amazing ride. And a big part of that, obviously, has been that the United States of America, this great country of ours, has completely dominated the internet age. Wouldn't you say, Steve? I mean, if you look at 9 of the 10 most valuable technology companies in the world, they are here in the great USA. And I would submit to you, one reason that happened is we made a very, very smart decision in the 90s, where we said we are going to let the internet age flourish. We're going to make it regulation-free, tax-free, lawsuit-free, and make it the Wild West. And we created these incredible companies like Amazon and Apple and NVIDIA and companies like Google that have changed the world. And we have the capability of doing the same thing with this new revolution. So that's a quick setup for what we're going to be talking about today. The question is whether we will build the infrastructure for this nerve center of the future of technology. So let me start by asking you, Steve, because for those of you who are not familiar with NetChoice has really been, what you guys have done has been amazing. You're the Pied Piper of this, taking this message around the country about how important technology is. And yet, we are facing a very worrisome revolt against AI and against data centers. Why do you think that has happened so quickly? And what do we do to try to educate Americans about the importance of this revolution?
Thank you, Steve. And it really has happened quickly. You know, just a year ago, rural counties in all of your states would line up and ask for a data center. They would ask for $1 billion data center with the investment, the jobs, 200 people getting 6 figures out of high school or trade school, and then massive property tax relief. This has been a success story for 20 years. We've had to build a data center once a week on average to keep all the stuff that you're putting on your phone, your photos and videos and messages, all of the business and everything that goes in the cloud lives in a data center.
How many data centers are there in the United States?
There are thousands of data centers. And the difficulty we have is that that was done all before AI. And then a couple of years ago, AI comes on the scene, and about the time Donald Trump was inaugurated, this country, there was a disturbance in the force. And we went from wanting data centers to being afraid of them. And so you look at what could have caused that change, and some of it was President Trump. President Trump embraced AI data centers to beat China, grow the economy and the stock market, and lead the world. because he embraced it, I guess anyone with Trump derangement syndrome would have automatically been against data centers. That might be some of it, but I think more of it is anxiety that people feel about AI. They're a little scared of what AI may do to their jobs, their lives. Will they be able to tell truth from fiction? That is enough to scare people. And when they're scared, they're susceptible to disinformation. And the disinformation doesn't match at all the actual experience of data centers done right, create massive amounts of jobs and taxes. They don't use significant amount of water, none at all if the water's not around. They cause electricity bills to go down, and their noise at the perimeter is of no consequence when it's done right.
So I'm going to ask you all another question. How many of you in this room have actually visited and been inside a data center? Raise your hand. A lot of, a lot of you have. I visited a data center out in Loudoun County, Virginia, which I think is one of the largest data centers in the country, if not the world. I have to say, we spent the whole day there. My jaw was open. This is the most incredible economic development, the technological sophistication in massive amounts of computers. And most people don't realize, I get frustrated with people saying, I don't want AI, I hate data centers, no data centers, no data centers. No data centers? Do you like this? Do you like your cell phone? Because it's not going to work without data centers. Do you like the internet? Do you like GPS system? Do you like all of the technological features we have? None of that works without data centers. And so it's like people saying, I don't want an electric power plant, but I want the lights to come on. You have to have both. This is a critical part of the infrastructure. So Senator, that's a great lead in to you. Texas has been actually the leading state. I believe Texas has more data centers than any other state. So how have you overcome the sort of opposition, and what recommendations would you give to state legislators around the country about how to calm people down?
Well, first off, this is the most frothy issue that I've seen in my political career, which is about as long as you guys have been going to ALEC, because of fear and the fact that what has captivated the public is not the data of a data center, but it's the emotion of they relate to AI. Now, you asked about Texas. As much as I would love to claim that Texas is the biggest, it's the best, it's the greatest, Virginia is slightly bigger than us on data centers. But to my Texas delegation, they'll be shocked to know there's 335 active data centers now in Texas, and 248 that are proposed. Now, what does that mean economically? In Texas, in 2024, we had 103,000 direct employees of data centers, 429,000 indirect employees, effectively the pull through the economy, and a total economic effect of $39 billion, with 1 year's growth in 2023 to 2024 being 16%. So this is a monumental economic force, because you're right, everything that people take for granted on their cell phone is in a cloud and therefore in a data center somewhere. Now, importantly this, and the Texas delegation knows this, we've been talking about it for years. Lieutenant Governor Patrick said we need to be looking at cogeneration on these sites for 4 years. Our water chairman, Charles Perry, Senator, he wants to talk about closed loop water supplies. Our board member, Phil King, was part of his bill that said there's an off switch. If you've got a center that's taking too much, you can actually say, sorry, we got to shut you down on the grid. And more importantly, there is a path here that I think Texans can support, which is when you look at data centers, if they're bringing cogen, if they've got closed loop water supply, look, they're like every other industrial plant that we all love, including in Texas, a 2.5 million square foot facility in San Antonio for a major car company. And Elon Musk has talked about a 100 million square foot center in Grimes County. So we have to decide, is this the wheat or is this the chaff? And when you look at this issue, this is about as frothy as it ever been. If I can, the quick political stats. In Texas, we've had some great polling done. And at this point, Republicans are split about even, 42 for, about 44 against. But in the last 3 months, the left has exploded against AI data centers.
Right.
Because Trump's, the Trumpsters for it, so they have to be against it. And in Texas, 71% of Democrats are opposed, only 16 for.
Wow.
That's a net 55.
Wow.
So what's happened is, as we've had a discussion, and I've got great rural members out here, not just Texas, all these states, there's a lot of concern in rural America about it. So that shows, especially in the Republican numbers. But what the story has been is this accelerated attack that's come from the leftist progressives. They don't like the money. They think it's all rich folks. They think it's all horribly anti-green, that somehow this is going to destroy the fabric of the United States, when it's really already those data centers are an integral part of what we do and take for granted every day.
It's a great point. You know, the one, Steve and I live in the DC area, and I mentioned the Loudoun County data center. That's been there for, how long has that been there? A long time. Okay. And most people didn't even know it was there, right? Yeah. And so I've never seen, when we visited that data center, which was, it's always expanding, et cetera. I mean, I've never seen so many construction workers. I've never seen so many trucks coming in. You want to talk about American on the move. It's just unbelievable how many jobs
and Steve knows these are U.S. subcontractors and contractors.
They are building equipment
exactly
in the towns all over America.
It's economic development.
Economic switches, manufacturing, shipping, setting it up and maintaining it. And the guys in the data center, we asked the guy who's in the generator room, what do you earn? His base is $150,000. So these are good jobs.
They sure
you don't have to move away to the city to have a good job in rural America. You know, some of this hysteria, the froth, I think Senator Bettencourt uses the right term, some of that froth is sort of stimulated. It's sort of foamed up a little bit by a couple of foreign interests. We know that the Swiss billionaires worried about climate change and got the left all spun up. Right. Remember that 20 years ago when America tried to engage in fracking and shale gas?
Yes.
It was the left and environmentalists who got against it. In Western PA, where I'm from, they created a thing called fracktracker.org to keep track of fracking. That was 20 years ago. Well, they've just added a new feature to the website. It's called the Data Center Resistance Tracker.
Right.
So the resistance is the same folks that didn't want us to build oil and gas, which is trillions of dollars of value to the economy, and America's nearly independent. But another form of froth comes from, who else? Our largest rival on the planet when it comes to technology, China. Okay. They can spend next to nothing to generate images of a data center with smoke coming out of it, or using water, and for a few dollars more, push that image into the social media, the fake Facebook pages that show up in your county when the data center is on. And I thought, if you don't mind, well, I wanted to run a 30-second ad right now that NetChoice ran in Texas, Ohio, Missouri, Kansas, and Georgia. Can we cue it up?
China is investing trillions to win the tech race. They want to beat America economically and militarily. President Trump is fighting to build more data centers to grow our economy and strengthen our national security. But liberals like Bernie Sanders and AOC want to shut down American innovation.
I will be pushing for a moratorium on the construction of data centers.
Shutting down data centers strengthens China and makes America weaker. America can't afford that risk.
Well, that's a great ad. By the way, congratulations. And that really is what this is all about. It is about we're in an Indy 500 race against China to see who wins this race. We have to win this just like we won the internet wars, but we can't win it if we're not building the infrastructure necessary. I mean, I think of this when I came back from our visit to the data center. By the way, if you get the opportunity to do this, I really believe if every American actually saw what's going on in a data center, they would be thrilled by by the economic development, the jobs, and the capabilities of these facilities. I think of this like 100 years ago, Henry Ford going into Michigan and saying, hey, I want to build some auto plants here. And people say, oh, we don't want your auto plants. They're going to use energy. They're going to use our water. They're going to make noise. I mean, these are where the jobs of the future are going to come from. And I think the most important point, I hope you come away from this discussion, is that it is a race between the United States and China, and we must win. But we cannot win without building the essential infrastructure.
You know, Steve, look, it's China, China, China. Okay?
Right.
Now, by the way, did you like the video? Give him a hand for that, because I thought the video
was amazing,
puts
yeah.
it right. Now, when you look at the political opposition, and you've got people that also are what I call is the concerned opposition. You want to separate those two, okay? Because people can have concerns, and that just it leads to a rational conversation. But in Texas, what we've seen is what I call virtue signaling now.
Yeah.
You know, I call him Professor Graham because that's what he was when I first met him, okay? Hino San Marcos is now a very liberal city in Texas. They've got a leftist progressive majority city council. They looked at one of these systems, hyperscale AI data center. They voted it down in February, but just this month they decided they were going to ban AI data centers. Now, why did they do it? It's because they saw the polling too on the leftist on the leftist socialist, progressive socialist, and so they're leaning into now this 71-16 vote in the Democratic Party. So we have to understand what we're seeing is not just China, but we've got other people. We've got, you know, I can't prove it, but there's probably Soros money here. Oh, I can't prove it. There is. Okay. Yeah, there's money from the Middle East. Oh, I can't prove it. Okay. But, and so when you see this social media, it takes a breath away from people, especially in rural parts of the United States, because they're so clever. I had one member show me one that is a guy in a hat. It's all a caricature, but he swore he was a 7th generation Texan. And I went through all the social media pages, and I didn't find one howdy, one y'all, one anything, one even relationship to a town in Texas. But boy, that 7th generation Texan scared the HE double hockey sticks out of that member.
Right.
Now, but we really need to have a discussion with our thoughtful people that are concerned. Because yes,
we do.
Can we do a lot with closed loop water supply? Steve knows.
No, seriously, that ad certainly stimulates a realization that there's a rival who doesn't want us to build data centers and doesn't want us to lead an AI. And that will help explain where some of this disinformation is coming from. That has helped a lot, because otherwise people think what they're reading on Facebook must be true. I mean, the pandemic did some real damage to credibility in America. I think that during the lockdown, people stopped trusting the government. They stop trusting business. They don't listen to big media. And who do they trust? They trust what they see on Facebook, or they trust a podcast. So I believe that has meant people are vulnerable to that. And we have to be thoughtful in speaking to them. And the best answer to the fear is the facts. We have such a great track record of data centers. They're not new. We've been building them for 25 years.
Most people
so when we explain what they're for, and we're not building them for us, we're building them for you.
Let me just make one point that's important. So I think a lot of these arguments, like they're going to cause tax, you know, they're not going to pay their fair share of taxes, they're not going to pay their fair share of electric utility bills. That's just flat out false. I mean, in fact, in most of these communities, they're actually, like Virginia, which was one of the, also a data center, the property taxes have gone down, not up, because of the amount, and the utility bills have gone down, not up. But let's talk about this other element of this that I think is maybe more problematic in terms of selling the American public on this, which is people are nervous about AI. And they're nervous about a couple of things, gentlemen. One is people are worried about their jobs. You know, they're worried about whether my job will exist 5 or 10 years from now. I mean, probably 10 years from now, there are not going to be a lot of trucking jobs. I mean, almost all long-haul trucks will be automated and be done through AI. And so people are understandably nervous about that. And then you've got, but there's another concern that people have on the conservative side of the aisle, which is big tech. And a lot of people think, you know, people who like agree with everything we've said this morning will say to me, and these are great people, you know, they say, I don't trust these people in Silicon Valley. I don't trust what they're going to do with this knowledge and this information, this technology. So I'd throw that out to both of you.
Yeah, the fact is that any of you try to use AI today, you will start to realize the power of a technology that is built on everything that humans have written and said. Take that knowledge, build an engine that can speak to us in our language, And when we ask it a question and provide context, what you've written before, context of a speech you gave, and ask it to analyze an issue, you're seeing AI's ability to transform knowledge work. That will generate more engineering, scientific, medical, and healthcare breakthroughs than we've ever had. There truly is an abundance ahead. Coupled with that is the notion of productivity. At this point in America, every day we have fewer workers than we had the day before. Our birth rate is well below replacement. Immigration is very controlled. And we have a workforce that's getting smaller, not larger. So the only way we will be able to grow this economy is to make our workers more effective and more efficient. AI is going to be that supercharger for productivity. It will generate more jobs, not less.
So just before you answer that, I'm on the board of a company called Lightspeed. How many of you have heard of Lightspeed? A few of you have. Look it up on just Google Lightspeed. We build houses with robots. Robots and the technology. So when people talk about, oh my gosh, housing is so unaffordable, we're going to be able to build houses at half the cost. So that means in the future people are going to be able to, own castles, and the health benefits are extraordinary. We already are making incredible advances with AI. I just visited some of the health technicians. They are now able through AI to spot cancer in patients much earlier. And everybody knows someone who's a little bit lost from cancer. If you detect cancer early, you can combat it. That's just one little example, but go ahead.
You know, Steve, look, let's take that thought. All right, you've got a deep calculation on what could be a cancer cure, on molecular arrangement of a specific compound. You can run hundreds of, or effectively millions, unlimited scenarios through an AI data center. Boy, a cure for cancer would change this rapidly, this discussion. Okay, let's go to the battlefield because we've got strategic concerns. Last report I read is the average Russian recruit has a 20 to 35 minute lifetime expectancy on the battlefield. Why? Because they're being dealt with massive drones, et cetera. So how do you have a defense in depth? Will the US have that capability? That's why we're talking about strategic defense with these hyperscale AI data centers. But again, back to the fear of this. It was the tremendous improvement in the American workers' productivity in the 1990s, right, that took the PC revolution and threw it through all parts of the economy, financial, industrial, everywhere, business, government, okay? We're on the cusp of the same point, but we do have to take into account that a lot of areas are starved for water. Now, what do? Well, we have a closed loop water system, but also remember this, technology moves. These plants are being right now basically CPU governed by NVIDIA chips, 300 models, but they double in power every 5 months. When I was in semiconductors and I worked for the first US robot company called Unimation, it used to be the old rule in Silicon Valley was the CPU doubled every 18 months. We're talking about every 5 months. So by the time we all get back into session at the first of the year, okay, the CPUs that run these plants will have doubled in capacity. Now, what can we look over the horizon long term? I just visited U of H, which is now one of our big leading institutions in the US. They did original superconductor material research. And I showed Steve last night some of the first papers of changing how we cool on the back of these chips. From what are like old, effectively heat islands in an urban area, which is called office buildings, to what look like trees and what looks like structures in your lung because they're 50% more efficient. Technology is close to solving these problems. And we have to wait and look at and make sure we give enough time for all this to mature and not have a knee-jerk reaction to it. But understand that water is life in rural America, and we have to make sure we never break that pledge that we're dropping in some type of siphon hoses into rural America and take their lifeline away, which is water.
So we only have a minute or two left. So by the way, how many of you in this room get our Unleash Prosperity hotline? Most of it. Well, if you're not getting it, please get it. Just just send me a note or give me your card or something, because it goes out to 100,000 people. But we had something in the hotline today about how in New York, which has banned data centers, they're building, this is the idiocy of New York social democrats. So they're not going to build data centers, but they want to build thousands and thousands of acres of solar farms. So think about this, a data center uses maybe a few acres, and they want to pave over the entire, western part of New York with solar panels. I mean, it shows the idiocy of the left, and which leads me to this question of, I was so heartened by the fact that so many people in this room said they were excited about AI. Thank God, and I think we're getting our message across. But is this going to become a red state, blue state thing where, states like Texas, states like Florida, states like Utah and Idaho and the Carolinas build these, and the blue states just opt out of the future, which would be ironic because California is where the technology revolution started.
Well, I mean, Steve, look at who's already led the ban. You got Governor Hochul in New York. She's just flat banned it. Right. Okay? Right. Now, and what you look at with Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott, okay, they're trying to look at a different way to get everybody ready, and specifically in Texas, we've got something with our ERCOT group called Bat Zero. To make a long story short, it's about taking these applications, and I'll let Steve finish with this, compressing them into the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? And using things like, okay, we're going to make sure that we've got power infrastructure, we're going to make sure we're using closed loop water, They should be looking at cogen. That's the way I think to do it, is to screen out a lot of this, because 30 seconds, if you're not already building a data center, it's going to be 5 years for you to get a turbine, and 3 to 4 years to get the main transmission step-down transformers that you need. And most of these delegations have been to Washington and heard the Commerce Secretary talk about that in private briefings at the White House. Steve?
Think about it. We can build a data center anywhere in the country to serve users who are everywhere, because our connectivity is so good. So we choose to build data centers in communities that embrace them, and where the utilities have the power. And if they don't, we will bring and build our own power. But one thing is that takes a few years to bring and build our own power. This time next year, when ALEC meets, we will have, hopefully, this fever, this froth will have peaked.
I agree.
And America will start to base its decisions on facts and not just on fears. Be resistant to forces that don't want us to win.
Yes.
But the years it will take to build new data centers, during that period, we will know whether the world is going to be adopting the Chinese AI stack and the Chinese models, or are they going to be adopting America's models, America's values and stacks? That is from the bottom up, from the chips all the way to the large language models and AI. We want America's model to lead the world, and I think to do that, we've got to understand where the fear is beating out the facts and embrace the future. We're the #1 industry at investing in America's communities and future. Let's help to build for America's future.
These are, I think we'd all agree, these data centers are assets to a community. It's like saying, I don't want a factory or I don't want a warehouse or the jobs. And so I think the mistake that the tech companies made, and this is our last point, is that they're kind of forcing it on people and saying, and the community says, no, we don't want it. Build them where people want them.
That's right.
Can we do that, Steve?
We do, but we'll start down that path, and then 200 folks in pink T-shirts will show up at a town hall meeting and scare the bejesus out of the commissioners. At that point, those commissioners need true information. We need to take them on a tour of a data center in a nearby state, show the data, get others to show that they want it. But eventually, about half the time, that county changes its mind, and we move on to another county. But it's slowing us down against China.
Let's win the race for the technological future in this country. Thank you, gentlemen. Wonderful job, and we're at your disposal.
It's liquid gold, Steve, liquid gold.